So if you go to the Real Zero website, you will find these two guides. One is a guide to good leak testing that tells you the proper way to leak test. And then there's another one that is the illustrated guide to 13 common leaks. And we're going to be looking at a few of those in this video. One of the most common places in an HVAC system to find a leak is the Schrader Cores in the service valves. And it's very important when you do service work that you make sure that you tighten down the service caps, as most service caps have a little neoprene ring in the top of them. And if you tighten them down real tight, they will block off most of the leaks that you'll see from Schrader Cores. Any point in the system where you have a Schrader Core, that is a point of a leak, and the most common place that you're going to find a leak. So make sure you bubble test all your Schrader Cores that you have on your system to make sure that they're not leaking. This is a very important tool to have in your tool bag, a core removal tool. If you have a leaking Schrader Core in your system, this is the way that you can replace that Schrader Core without having to recover the charge. By using the core removal tool, you can take the Schrader Core out, isolate the system, put a new Schrader Core in the tool, and then open the system and put the new Schrader Core back into the service valve. A very useful tool to have in your tool bag. Most places require the locking caps to be put on the service valves. So again, you need to make sure that the Schrader Cores are not leaking when you put these locking caps onto the service valves. Another point in the system where you're going to find a lot of leaks is a flare joint. Many techs have trouble making flare joints, and even if you make a perfect flare joint, it's still a point where you can have a leak. So any flare joints that you have on dryers or at service valves, bubble test them to make sure that they're tight and not leaking. Another place that you're going to find common leaks is on return bends on coils. A lot of times these are done at the factory, and sometimes the machine that makes these welds does not get them done correctly. So on brand new equipment, you can find return bends that leak. On older equipment, you can find return bends that are leaking because of punctures, because of corrosion, because of rust. So the return bends of a coil should be soaped down sufficiently so that you can find a leak on the coil. Another place that is common for leaks on HVAC equipment are capillary tubes on evaporator coils, where they are tied together, and because of the vibration of the system, they can rub together and cause a leak. So this is another place you need to put on your checklist to check for leaks when you have a leak on a refrigerant system. Many times technicians will put an access port onto a copper line, and this access point has a neoprene ring, but many times they will start leaking after a period of time. So if your system has any of these devices that you can put onto a copper line to access the refrigerant point, make sure that you double check these when you're checking for leaks. Another point to look for leaks are any high or low pressure switches or any device that has been put into the copper tubing. These again are put onto fittings that do not have Schrader Cores on them, and after time the metal to metal connection can start leaking. So again, for your checklist for searching for leaks, make sure you bubble around any low high pressure switch or any device that has punctured the refrigerant tubing. This should be a big one on your list. Condenser coils that have oil streaks on them is usually a sign that there is a refrigerant leak in the coil. Sometimes these can be very difficult to find, and you're going to have to make sure that you have a leak detector that is very sensitive and that you take your time going across the section, as most of these leaks are usually pretty small and hard to find. We have had a number of comments from homeowners and technicians that have found a white substance such as this found around a new condensing unit after it has been installed. This is finishing oil. So if you open up a box of a brand new condensing unit and you see oil in the bottom of the unit, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a leak. It could be finishing oil that during shipment has run down the coil and is pooled in the bottom of the unit. Once the unit is in operation and there's sweating that washes the oil out of the base pan of the unit, you will find this white substance around the unit. Just instruct the homeowner to take their garden hose and wash down the pad that the unit is on to get rid of this finishing oil. It will not harm any plants or grass around the concrete pad. The last type of leak that we're going to look at is on an open type compressor. So those of you that are looking for leaks on an open system, never forget the shaft seal on the compressor, as it is a #1 place to look for a leak. So look for a leak around the shaft seal if you have oil that's leaking out of an open type compressor.
Go to Airefco.com for more videos. Like, subscribe, and check back every week for new videos.